Hola, what's up? Welcome to the Don't Stifle Me podcast. My name is Jacob Stee-full, and it's great to be here, drinking some coffee here, hanging out with you once again. Before we get into it, I do want to let you know this podcast is listener funded, which you can be a part of. You can be a part of it all. Plus, you get behind the scenes, pictures, video, and more at patreon.com/DSM podcast. For as little as $1 or $3 a month, you can get access to exclusive perks that are available only to Patreon supporters. So once again, if you want to check that out, awesome. That is patreon.com/DSM podcast. All right. On today's episode, I'm joined by Allen Thompson of the Allen Thompson Band. In addition to being a songwriter and artist and performer himself, he also plays guitar from time to time with singer-songwriter Todd Snider, among many other projects and shows that he helps put on at different venues here around the Nashville area. We had a great chat about music and life, enjoyed some coffee, played a little guitar at the end, and he's a great guy. He's been through a lot. I mean, most of us have been through a lot, but most of us also can't say that we've jumped off into some water, broken our back, and lived to tell about it. So Allen can do that, and we definitely got to that and much more. So here's my talk with Allen Thompson.
Pick it up from piano.
So when did you get into because you do a lot of the tribute type shows? Is that just something you do just
Well, I started doing the Last Waltz thing about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And as it grew in popularity, I think that's sort of when certain people that did some booking at two of the larger, the mid-sized venues in town realized that they could fill it up if they didn't have a small national or something.
Okay, so he's kind of like works with them like they do it.
Right, yeah. Typically, a lot of times Joseph Copeland or Terry or whoever's throwing one of the other ones will ask me to come and sing, and I'm always happy to do it because it's a blast. But the Last Waltz is the only one that I am on.
Man, I was so I played on just one song with Don.
Right.
It was so awesome to just be there and
it's the best night of the year.
Much good music.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just such a treat to get to do those songs and especially when it's harder the older we all get and the better off in our careers, which is obviously a great thing.
Yeah,
but the less opportunities we have to spend a bunch of time together and nerd out on music and stuff. So it's really cool, I think, to see all the generations of people who've just gotten to town, or guys like Audley Freed and Steve Gorman who have sure enough done it.
Yeah,
and and John Jackson too.
Yeah, I got to sit back and watch Steve Gorman play drums and Audley Freed play guitar.
I got to sing with it.
Yeah.
It's that's crazy.
Yeah,
it's 17-year-old me is high-fiving himself.
Yeah,
but it's cool to see that they still have so much love for that music and I think it kind of makes them happy to see that we still revere it as well.
Yeah, it's cool getting to the point to where you're not having to play covers, because a lot of people playing music and stuff when they do the whole bar scene, get kind of jaded on having to go play cover songs. But getting to the point to where you're I want to go. This is music I love, and I'm gonna go be a part of.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing. When we travel, with the exception of throwing a few things in there that we just think are fun and we think fit with what we do. I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
But at home, when it's a bunch of us getting together, that Bob Seger night that they did about a year ago, that was killer.
I missed that one, but
it was man. It was it was crazy to see how many people came out of the woodwork as big Bob Seger fans.
Yeah.
It was really, really fun.
I was listening to 9 Tonight live album last night.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, man, he's great.
When he comes out with, or it's the second one. The first one is 9 Tonight, but the second track on there is Trying to Live My Life Without You.
Yeah, I sang that.
But really,
I did that and Heartache Tonight and I can't remember.
Yeah,
one of the really slow ones, but I love that stuff. And have you heard the Bob Seger System live album?
Nuh-uh.
So this was like before this Silver Bullet Band. This is his first deal, and they did this live record, and there's this like almost like punk rock version of River Deep Mountain High on there. It's just so good, man. It's so good. Yeah, you got to look that up, man.
Yeah, what was the name of it?
The Bob Seger System.
Oh, was that like before he was?
That was his first record deal, or like his second record deal. And
there's an old video of him doing
sort of
Ramblin' Gamblin' Man.
Yeah.
On like a TV show, black and white video, and it's like him clean shaven, and he's playing keys, I think, on it, and it's probably somewhere around that time. Where are you from?
I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia. So
born and raised, like your whole.
Yeah, I mean, I bounced like around that like little section of, I guess, 81, 64. Like, I was born in Roanoke, and then my folks were in school, Blacksburg and Virginia Tech and Radford are just like 45 minutes south. So I lived in like Christiansburg and Blacksburg for a little while, and then my folks got divorced, and I went to live with my grandparents and lived back in Roanoke, and then my mom moved to Charlottesville, so I go back and forth, and I moved to Richmond after I graduated college, and lived there for like 3 years, and then I came to Nashville. So pretty much everywhere except for D.C. and the beach in Virginia I've lived. Yeah.
I got you. I tell you what, I didn't realize a month or two ago I went up, and I'd never been to D.C. or anywhere up that way, so I just booked a few acoustic shows on the way up there and back just to get me there to see stuff.
Right.
And I played a little bar in Charlottesville, and then I was booked at a place in Roanoke, but it kind of canceled on me, and then I had another show. But I didn't realize how fucking beautiful Virginia is.
It's gorgeous.
It sounds ignorant of me to say that, but like I was going up, and then I got off the interstate to go over to Charlottesville, and when you go like over that first group of mountains or whatever, and then you kind of open up and see, man, it was gorgeous.
A lot of I mean, people don't really think, because I guess, like the Poconos and the Adirondacks or whatever, like they, there's the valleys are more spaced out and the mountains are higher, so there's there's all those like resorts and everything.
Yeah.
Like around Woodstock and stuff. But for my money, man, the section of Appalachia that's like just the prettiest, the best part of that trail is like from Harper's Ferry down to Asheville.
Yeah.
Like best swimming and fishing in the rivers, best hiking, like, and everything's just so gorgeous every time of year. Like even now, I drove through Saturday. We played in Asheville, and I went up to Roanoke to visit my family for a second.
Yeah.
And like the leaves had all fallen off, but it was still just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so pretty there.
Yeah, I went and toured Monticello and did that whole thing. And man, just the view, like looking off from it's just...
Man, yeah, especially over there, like in Crozet and stuff. That's one of the real prime spots. It's really good.
That was a great week on that trip until the last night of that week. My car got broken into in DC in a parking garage. So I got the full DC treatment.
Yeah, you got the DC experience. Yeah. I remember when we used to go to shows at the 930 Club, and if you didn't park like in the Howard University lot, then you were screwed, man.
Yeah.
You were gonna come back and your car would be up on blocks, and your tires would be, your wheels would just be gone.
It was supposed to be a safe garage,
always.
But the gate was broken, so like at night anybody could come in.
Right.
They didn't have any sign posted that said, by the way, our gate's broke. And I talked to the cop that was doing the report, and he was like, yeah, this happens a few times a month. I'm like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Nothing you can do about it. Like, yeah.
No,
and then a few weeks later, I got a nice envelope in the mail from from Washington D.C. folks that apparently I was going 36 and a 25, and I had to send them $100 of my hard-earned money.
Oh, that reminds me, I still need to send some money to the city of San Francisco for them.
Ah.
Because they do like the cashless on the toll now.
Oh yeah. I got something from,
and that was like a van and a half ago. So I got
a question.
Spaced.
I got a question for you. So I got a thing in the mail from Texas, Houston area, for one of the toll things where they mail it to you. Yeah. But it was for a van ago, like you're talking about. Yeah. It was not the van that I just sold, but the one before that. And it was a whole different tag. Do I still have to pay that?
I mean,
they're not going to find that tag. That tags in
right. And I mean, and it might be attached to your license, but I think it's probably doubtful that for one non-paid toll, you'd be like not allowed to drive in Texas. But if that's the case, then it's like Texas is the biggest state, so you get to take the most naps.
That is true.
That's your tour manager's problem, not yours.
Yeah. So you went to, you say you went to college after high school?
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
I went to Radford University because it was the closest and the
So that's up there
cheapest and
around
the easiest to
that
get
area.
into
Okay.
near it. And it was one of those things where it's like I kind of always knew that I was going to get out and do music. But I also knew that parents and grandparents and stuff, like, you need to go to college.
Yeah.
You need to go to college. And so I went, and the music department there is pretty good, but it was like all kids I'd grown up with and done like musical theater with and stuff. And I was just really burned out on like the competition and the stage mom aspect of all that.
Yeah.
And I was at that point, because I was young and eager, like just sort of voraciously trying to learn any sort of theory and just sponging everything I could.
Yeah.
But I was really dissatisfied with my writing, so I figured I went and got my BA in English. And and I was kind of one of the few people that was there like for creative writing, because Radford had originally been like an all-girls vocational school. So pretty much still by 30 years later, everyone who was there for either nursing or education.
Okay.
So, it was a great experience for me, and that since I was one of the only kids doing creative writing, I got a lot of encouragement, but it was probably also a bit of a curse because I was the only kid. So it's like I wasn't really that good, but they were just so happy to have
That
one of
somebody
me
was-
there that they were like, "This is amazing, Alan." And I was like, "Oh, yes, I'm amazing." And then I got out into the real world. Like I moved here and, like realized that my writing, it could be better.
We could always be better. I'm wondering, I feel like the whole being told that you need to go to college thing, it's coming to a head, or it has come to a head, or something.
That's probably not something I think that we'll do with our children unless we're in positions where we're rich enough to send them to prep schools and then on to Ivies or Southern Ivies like Vandy or something like that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it doesn't really, like, those are the only situations where it actually preps you for something.
Yeah.
In terms of like your job and your vocation and your station in life.
Right.
I think it's a shame that college, is going back to being something that's only for, upper middle class and higher people.
Right.
That's a real shame.
Yeah.
But it's also, I mean, that's just the way, it's Bruce Hornsby.
Yeah, I just wonder, because it's not the most important thing unless you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or
Right.
Especially if you don't even know what you want to do yet.
Well, and I think that's the nail on the head, is that it's like, there's no sense in you and or your parents going into serious debt. Like, I mean, nowadays, like a full between like housing and books and everything. Like, if you want to send a kid to college and make sure that they like are able to they don't have to get 2-3 jobs in order to take care of themselves.
40-50 grand easy.
Yeah,
like,
probably
totally.
Close to like a year, maybe. Depending on
Depending
some of
on
the
where,
schools.
yeah.
If they're out of state or anything like that. I mean,
I saw a video where a guy was talking about it was what's that the Dirty Jobs guy.
Mike Rowe.
Yeah, he was talking about. I saw a video of him, and he was talking about he got like a community college degree, and then went on and did like another level. Maybe he got his full bachelor's or something. But he said what he did was like 5 or 6 years, and it cost him like $12,500.
Right. Well, then
he said that same thing now would be $80,000.
Oh yeah, easily. Well, and that's what both of my folks did, was that they got like bits and pieces for vocational stuff, and then my mom ended up getting a master's and, like finally going into a field, but she was pushing 40 at that point.
Yeah.
My dad got his bachelor's and then ended up like going back to school to become a CPA and then going back to school and, then got his real estate license. And now like, but he's like super happy and super, he does all right and doesn't have a lot to worry about. But I mean, especially with like taking on 2 extra kids and and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's so
and
crazy.
I was bouncing back and forth, so I guess he was probably paying child support at certain points. And it's so it wasn't until he was like 50 and we were all gone that like everything was like smooth sailing.
Right.
Which I think about that now, because I'm like 36 on the days when I'm like, shit, what have I been doing with, like, man, this is just not working out the way I expected it to.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, right. It never
doesn't,
really does,
right?
I
was listening to, there's a podcast, one of my favorite that I listen to is called How I Built This. And I think NPR does it, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
And people out there listening, they interview people that started like Starbucks and Five Guys Burgers and Whole Foods Market and like all these things that have been mega successful and talk about their path, kind of like we do here, whatever.
Yeah,
but,
one of my really good friends, her father, started Dippin' Dots.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he was always kind of like an inventory guy, but he was a scientist, first and foremost, and he worked at this agricultural college in like near Metropolis, near like the Paducah, state line.
Yeah.
And he was trying to figure out a way, because it's cold as shit in the Midwest, to like keep grain and stuff longer. And so they figured out this way that they could like freeze it. It's already cold, so like the cows and stuff could just like eat these pellets, and they would it just melt in their mouths and then grow and stuff. And they like used to do like the churning with the salt and everything, ice cream, just for fun at the house. And then like one day like the light bulb goes off.
Why not try this?
And next thing you know, it's like everywhere.
Oh man, growing up, when you go to amusement parks or the mall or whatever, the Dippin' Dots, gotta have Dippin' Dots.
Exactly. No, I mean, and they're actually, he sold out of that, and they're doing that now with coffee.
Really?
They've got this thing called 40 Below Joe, and it's like, it's the same
so like
deal.
Cold brew.
Well, it's basically like, kind of. Or you can do it. They have like different creamers. Like they have an almond milk one, they have a coconut milk one, they have a dairy one. It's the same deal. It's the little pellets, and then they've got like a couple of different roasts of coffee. And so basically, you can like dump all that in your cup and throw it in the microwave, and you're good to go in like 30 seconds. Or you could just eat it like the Dippin' Dots.
That sounds great.
And like have it like frozen cold brew, basically. It's really cool, man.
40 Below Joe?
40 Below Joe.
Yeah,
Tracy Jones, I'm blowing up your spot right now. I'm so sorry, but like she gave me a big bag of it, and I love it. I like, especially like in the mornings when I'm not when I'm in a hurry.
Yeah.
Like because all I've got is a French press. I live alone, and I hate coffee machines and I hate microwaves, and so I'll just get like a spoonful of that and head out the door.
Yeah, man. I was listening to the Alvin and the Chipmunks one. The guy who's the married couple who run and own Alvin and the Chipmunks, the whole
the whole franchise and everything.
Yeah. Wow. This guy's dad started it in the 50s. Did like the ooh ee ooh ah ah ching chang what like the original Alvin and the Chipmunks thing.
Right.
He recorded that and just did a couple of things with it, but then it kind of died out. So this guy and his wife brought it back in like the late 70s or early 80s or whenever. But he was talking about through each aspect of getting it back in, getting on TV and getting it animated and doing all this stuff, they just figured it out. They didn't know what they were doing. And he said when it came to dealing with TV executives and movie executives and all these people that were quote unquote experts, he said, we found that there are no experts, that nobody really knows like how anything works.
Right.
And I was like, I remember that quote forever and ever.
Well,
I found that in life, like nobody knows.
There's a really, really great interview with Frank Zappa where he's talking about, he's talking about the labels in the 60s, and Atlantic was kind of like this, but mostly he's talking about Warner Brothers because let's be honest, like him and Neil Young and Van Morrison, especially like the Astral Weeks and all that, the Grateful Dead, Captain Beefheart, like they wouldn't get put out now.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, maybe if you're lucky, like a cool
Small indie labels, yeah.
you know, but I mean, not even like I could.
Yeah, because it's not the masses.
I couldn't even see like a lot of them touching it. You know, like, but back then it was the old like cigar chomping. I'm a businessman, but I mean, I like records, but they got into it because they like jazz. And they wanted to be able to put that out, and then they saw like X, Y, and Z, and that was the thing. They would just see things making money, and take a chance on it. But then what would happen is like this younger, they'd be like, oh, well, we need to get hippies in, we need to get young kids in, and the young kids would be like, I know what the kids want, and it's not that, and like people would just get shut out, and a lot of good music like. I won't say didn't get made, but definitely didn't get heard.
Yeah.
And a prime example of that is a band like Big Star, who the majors wouldn't touch, and Stax didn't know what to do with.
Yeah.
And so therefore it's like we know about them now only because REM and the Replacements love them so much,
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting thing, like you're saying, where it's like, that's how great things get made, is when it's like, well, we don't know what we're doing, but we're just going to, throw the spaghetti against the wall, and when it sticks, we know it's done.
Yeah, I was looking around in the last couple of days, just kind of Googling Allen Thompson and seeing, stuff I might want to talk about or whatever. And I was reading a story, I forgot where it was on the website, but a quote you gave somebody, it said, after a few false starts in the business, I finally learned to stop writing for an imagined audience and start writing for yourself. Yeah, I think that's such a great thing, like, because I feel like so many people try and fail when they're trying to do something, like you said, for an imagined audience, or
right?
Trying to write for a specific group of people, to do this, where that, and some people can do that, whatever. But the best stuff is when you just drop that and you just be yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, and it takes, for some people they just do that inherently, like they have that amount of confidence. I really never did. I was always, even to the point, like on a microscopic level, where I'd be like, oh man, if my grandma's in the audience, I can't sing this line.
Yeah.
But broader too, like, oh, this will only, appeal to certain people, or this will only makes, this inside joke will only make sense to a couple people, and so I should probably try and make this broader. But the older I got, and the more I stopped caring about that, the more I started seeing the audiences, relating. The more I had people coming up to me after shows, and this means a lot, and that means and that was enough to give me the confidence to sort of write for myself, right? And ultimately, it's like I'm the one that has to sing this shit for the next 30 years,
right?
Like I need to like it.
Yeah, for sure. I found that especially in the last 6 months to a year of my writing and whatever, is like not thinking, oh, I need 3 verses and a chorus and a bridge, and like not thinking so much structurally, just like, how do I feel? What do the words feel to me?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it just needs to have one line of a chorus, or maybe not a chorus at all. Maybe whatever the song needs, and just kind of letting it be the art that it needs to be.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of the most important thing, is it's like I've gotten to a place now where I just sort of just catch can, sort of like I'll have, when my phone is like basically to the point where I can't put any more voice memos on it, that's when it's time for me to start digging in and finishing everything. Yeah. And I'll just do like little bits and pieces, and a lot of times, like when you listen to like the demos and stuff, like lyrically, I'm throwing like the same stanzas on like 5 different progressions. And then, eventually one of them has a home. And so like this will go here and that'll go there. And it's almost like, it's like putting a puzzle together. Yeah. And for me, that's just been a really cool way to do it, because one, I'm forced to, between, my schedule, like bartending and playing, and just not only not having the amount of free time that I would like to have, but not having the skills to use it wisely either.
Guilty. We're all guilty of it.
But too, it makes it. You feel more. I feel more attached to a project or to a song or like to the thing as the whole. If I sort of was able to create it all in little pieces as opposed to just like writing for an album. So this needs to be this kind of song. This needs to be this song.
Yeah,
It's nice to watch the song like. You finish something and you realize like this is going to be the centerpiece of a record.
Yeah.
This is going to be a lead track. This is going to be the one, that gets the crowd like jumping at, at certain points in the show if we place it in the right place in the set list. And it's like that you feel more married to it. You feel more, or I do anyway. I feel like
it means more
it's
to
more
you.
of
It's
a part
piece,
of me.
Yeah, a piece of you. Yeah.
It's just like stuff.
Yeah.
Like
not
that,
words
like,
that rhyme and sound right.
I envy people that can do that. Like Don Schlitz, man. He's what the fuck?
Yeah.
He's amazing. And I wish I could do that even just for a week.
Yeah.
But that's not really. I just don't have that, and I feel like that's something that can't be taught. Like that's something that comes naturally. It can be perfected,
right? It can be
but
honed in on, but yeah,
right. But if you don't have that sort of innate ability to make things that way, then all the classes or everything in the world, it's like you're never gonna, you're just not gonna be able to do that
for sure. When did you start playing music? We'll go back to the early days. Did you start on guitar?
Yeah, I started.
Yeah.
I got my first guitar when I was like 7 or 8, and it was a nylon string, and I took.
My first was a nylon string.
Yeah, and I took I guess classical lessons for a little bit, but I was 8 and wanted to play like Slash.
Yeah,
and so that seemed really boring. Like I wasn't even learning chords; I was just learning melodies, and that was it. And I mean, really, that's probably just the way it should be because you're 8 and you have tiny fingers, and you need to
just play notes,
create an ear before you can start creating, a bedrock for everything else.
Yeah.
But when you're a child, you don't understand those things. So I put it away for a while, and then when I was 12, I started playing again. I got an electric. Then my grandfather bought me an electric guitar, a Squire Strat, and I was like.
My first electric was a Squire Strat. Yeah.
Well, right on. Okay.
Yeah.
And then and at that point, like I was raiding my dad's record collection all the time, and my dad and I really didn't get along. We just didn't really understand each other, and still kind of don't. But now we just sort of accept it. But did
he play or anything?
No,
or
he didn't play. But it was I could tell like every time. He like as soon as he would hear like I'd actually like nailed the end part of Cinnamon Girl.
Yeah.
Just knock on the door like what? All right. It's like that was sort of like okay that's how we bonded, and so like that kind of encouraged me to keep at it.
Yeah. Very cool. When did you start playing like shows? What was the moment that you thought okay this is what I'm gonna do? Like this is.
As soon as I realized that I could.
Yeah.
I immediately started trying to write. I immediately wanted to form a band. I mean, it was kind of one of those things that's probably like all I really ever wanted to do.
Yeah, that's cool.
I didn't really think about terms. I mean, like other vocations or anything like that. Like, I just always.
You start playing gigs like in high school.
Yeah, the first band I put together, I guess I was like 14 or 15, and it was like my little brother on bass and like a couple of other neighborhood guys, and we played a lot of Pearl Jam and a lot of Sublime.
Yeah.
and then we sort of started. A couple of us discovered, or I had already like started discovering the Grateful Dead, and then like. Fish sort of came into our lives, and then
just like late 90s.
This is like late 90s, yeah. And then kind of all the stuff that goes along with that came into our lives. And we were like, well, we want to do more of this, and we did for a while, and I remember there was this one summer that a bunch of us followed the Allman Brothers around, and we went to like a ton of shows that year. And it was like summer of '99, and it was the opener on that run, at least for all the East Coast and Southeast stuff, was Lucinda Williams on the Car Wheels tour.
Oh, nice.
And that just blew my mind.
Yeah.
You know, like my brother and all my friends, they'd still be outside, you know, during Lucinda's set, like doing the lot thing.
Yeah.
And I was just like sitting at the front of the lawn, like, so that was the first time I'd seen her, the first time I'd seen Jim Lauderdale, the first time I'd seen Kenny Vaughan, the first time I'd seen John Jackson.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I was just like, holy shit.
This is what it's
Like,
supposed to
my
be.
My mind was just blown.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just remember like coming back that summer, and you know the guys are wanting to get like more spacey, more jammy, and they're you know also listening to like the more electronic versions of that, and I'm sitting there just like, I want to write songs like this,
Yeah.
you know, and then like playing Greenville for them, and they were like, I think you might need to find another band, you know, and so
Yeah.
and that was about the time I was headed off to college, and so that's when I kind of got really deep into doing like the folk singer thing and really trying to absorb all of that and you know, I would read like every interview that she did just to see who she listened to and who she was, you know, all about. And that's kind of how I discovered, you know, Guy Clark and Townes Van Zandt and Rodney Crowell, and rediscovered Steve Earle, because I listened to him a good bit with my dad when I was a little kid when the first two records came out. And that sort of, the other part, like the psychedelic part, never really went away, but, you know, I know what I really admired about the Dead and the Almonds was that they were able to sort of bridge those two things together really well, like the, you know, the country and folk and blues storytelling, and, you know, emotive vocals and important lyrics with, you know, but also, you know, with the more mind expanding aspects of things, and it's like that really just seemed like what I wanted to do.
When after college, did you know the whole time that you were going to come to Nashville when you got done, or what brought that?
I was, and my intent was to go to Los Angeles, and I was seeing this girl at the time, and her father grew up with this guy named Jimmy Knowles in D.C. And Jimmy was in a band called Sea Level that was sort of, it was the first Allman Brothers side project. And it was Chuck Leavell and J-Mo and Lamar Williams, and then Jimmy on guitar. And it was more like late era Little Feat, or like not all the way Weather Report, or, you know, in Mahavishnu, but like that. It was them doing like the jazz fusion, mostly instrumentals, sort of jammy thing. And Jimmy had Parkinson's disease, and so he'd moved up here from Macon, and he'd been playing with like T. Graham Brown and Delbert McClinton and a bunch of folks like that, but he couldn't really play anymore. And so we came down here for like a benefit show for him, and he and I just like super hit it off, and we stayed up all night playing songs and talking about music, and he was a big fan of the band, and obviously so was I, and then I was obviously a big fan of his because I was such an Almonds nerd. You know, I knew all about him already. And you know, one night he was just like, do you want to make a record down here with me? And I was like, yeah. So we came down later that year on our way to Bonnaroo, and I just like demoed like 12 songs in his little home studio, and you know, he called. By the time we got back on Sunday, stopped back through to say hi, he was like, we need to make a record. And so I used up all my, I was working at Capital One at the time when I was in Richmond, and I'd used up all my FMLA and stuff to and vacation pay to come down here to work on the record. So I've been coming down a good bit. And then I remember I was in Richmond, and I got a call from Jimmy, and he was like, you know, talking about mixes for for the album, and he was like, he was like, all right, I'm gonna burn you a CD and I'll send it to you, and you give it a listen for a couple days and tell me what you think. And I was like, why don't you just just compress them and email them to me or whatever, and I'll just that way I can just listen on the computer or on my phone or whatnot. And he was like, you can email songs? And I was like, Colleen, I think we might need to move to Nashville for a little while, because it seems like this might not happen if we're not there. Like, so let's go down for a couple of months and see what we think, and at least get this done. Yeah. And then, we'll see what happens. And 10 years later, I'm here, and she's in Telluride.
Well, yeah. So it goes. So 10 years? You've been here 10 years?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nice. When did you got down here? Did you know people? I mean, I guess from coming down.
I knew Jimmy, and the band he put together for that record was like Jack Pearson and Dave Pomeroy, Dennis Wage, Mike Caputi, Bonnie Bramlett sang a duet with me on it. Like, so I already kind of had fallen in with like a lot of people that were like my heroes, and the people that I'd looked up to already. I mean, because I knew about Dave from like the Keith Whitley records and stuff, and Jack, obviously being such an Almonds nerd, like I was super hip to what he was doing.
I love watching him play guitar. I love when
he's amazing. He's so sweet too, like and just so quiet.
Yeah,
he played some mandolin on the record, and I remember I was like, how long have you been playing mandolin? He's like, about 6 weeks. Jesus, man.
I just got one a few weeks ago. I've been messing around with it.
Like pretty much, that he's always like that. I love him for that. He's amazing, just super amazing. But yeah, so I fell in with him with all of those guys pretty fast, and they were really sweet to me, and really kind of, always had nice things to say about me, and would introduce me to anyone I would ask to meet, and I had a couple of other friends, a guy named Sean Katz, who was Lee Bryce's tour manager for a little while, and he's done just a bunch of different things, and he put me in touch with Shyla Morrow, who's the Mavericks manager. She wasn't at that point.
Shyla, I know, Shyla,
but she had this that Sin City thing, and so I fell in with a lot of those guys pretty fast, and I just got really lucky. Like that's who put me in touch with Mike Grimes, and Mike Grimes really is the person who made it so that I knew I could stay here.
You're right.
He, from the outset, let Sean book a showcase for me, like Sound Unheard, just based on Sean's enthusiasm. And he would put me on, anything he thought I was appropriate on. Like, he would call me, anything I would ask to be a part of, he would try and make room for me. And, as the years have gone on, like, anytime that I reach out to him or Dave or, or anyone involved in the Basement or Basement East, they are always, they're for it. You know? And it's
good to have people in
your
your corner.
That's been just invaluable. I'll never be able to thank them enough. I adore them.
Well, I also heard you were on, I think it was another podcast or something, and I remember here Don had told me about this. But you broke your back? Is that right?
Yeah.
So, I'm sure you've told that story.
Oh no, it's fine. But it's about 2 years ago. I was out at Percy Priest Lake with some buds, and I was cliff diving, and I don't really know, like, there were 4 of us that were jumping, and like the first one was fine, and then like the next girl, like hurt her feet, and then the next girl like got her thighs kind of bruised up, and and then I shattered my T12 vertebrae. And so I think it was like the wake that we created combined with like the wind sort of pulled my legs up a little bit. It was also a 50-foot drop.
Wait, so were y'all jumping at the same time, or is
No,
it
no,
like
no,
one
no, no,
okay.
separately. Yeah,
Okay,
it's
I gotcha.
one, then the other, and then the other, and so it's
Okay.
like just enough time for the other one to get out of the way,
Right.
basically.
Yeah. Okay.
And when I, you're weightless in the water, and your T12 vertebrae is the bottom of your thoracic. It's the one that's connected to your floating ribs,
Okay.
which are connected to your diaphragm. So I just thought I had the wind knocked out of me.
Oh,
And
okay.
because I was still mobile, like I
In
was
the water.
right.
Yeah.
And so I could swim back, but I couldn't breathe. So I got pretty close, and my buddy helped pull me in. And then when we're getting up the ladder, once I held on and got my feet up,
The gravity's like started. Yeah.
my arms and legs wouldn't work together, and so that's when we kind of knew something was wrong. And then, I went to the closest hospital was like the TriStar in Smyrna, and they don't have they did the initial X-ray, and they don't have a neurosurgical program there. So then they had to send me to Skyline, and I stayed there for about 30 days, and had to relearn how to walk, had to relearn how to play guitar, had to
So like.
I had to relearn how to do everything, basically.
So crazy. How's that? Is it a muscle nerve thing, or was it like a brain thing as far as like playing?
It was mostly a muscle nerve thing. I mean, like, because I mean that like my lats and my obliques were pretty much just ripped up.
Yeah.
And so that was a big problem. And then also like the vertebrae was just shattered to the point where, I mean, it looked like somebody took a jigsaw puzzle and like just spread it out across the table. It was like pulverized to powder. So there wasn't like, they did like a little bit of cleaning out, but they couldn't really like, and basically what they had to do is just sort of like, they took out the disc above and the disc below and stuffed that with cadaver bone. And then just sort of like put, screws above top and screws above the bottom and these 2 titanium rods, and then just let it all sort of fuse back together. And so while I'm waiting for that to fuse back together, I'm also having to like figure out how to do stuff.
Yeah.
And it was, oof, man, yeah, it was rough. It was definitely one of the most, I hope I never have to go through something like that again,
Yeah.
There was a lot of positives about it, though. I was, they did like a big benefit show for me at Basement East, and, I watched a lot of people really come together to help me out, and, and I watched some people not, and I was able to sort of learn a lot of things about myself that a lot of people aren't fortunate enough to learn. Quite often you don't see that kind of outpouring of emotion from your peers and your friends and family, because the only time it really occurs is like, when you're dead.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the cool things about cheating death, is that you can see that. And if you're smart, you can learn from it. And I was not smart for a really long time afterwards, because I was just like, I sunk into like a super deep depression, like I had been in a relationship that was ending right around the same time, and the stress from that just made that situation kind of be a lot more difficult than it should have been, a lot less amicable than it should have been. I mean, that person and I are, we're close friends now, but it took a solid 19 months or so to get there. And, a lot of it had to do with, I sort of was attempting to ignore the fact that I had like pretty severe PTSD from the accident. And, a lot of, when you can't do anything, like literally can't do anything, you can't lift things, you can't drive, you can't walk, you can't play the guitar, you can't, that's that. It's really, it's super emasculating for one, and even if you take like the gender out of it, it's just frustrating for any human in general. And
you're forced to live inside your head.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too. It's like I would, I was dealing with all this stuff, and I was too doped up to write
Yeah.
or to play about it. And so you just lay in bed and think about everything and on all the things that you can't do to fix anything all day, every day. And it was scary there for a really long time. And, now it took about 2 years, but I'm definitely on the other side of it and able to, spend most of my time being, understanding that I've got a lot to be thankful for, and writing again and performing again. Well, I was performing again as soon as I could, as soon as I could move.
How long, like from the time it happened until you considered yourself recovered, do you think?
Totally, I would say like maybe 5 months ago.
Okay.
But in terms of like, because I still couldn't work, because I couldn't bend and I couldn't lift anything.
Yeah.
But I could play, and I, as long as I wasn't standing still, and I wasn't, and so like that's how like the barefoot thing came to be. That's how like I started. I would do a lot less. I would play, but mostly electric, and like a lot more of the stage movement and stuff like that, and then a lot of me singing by myself.
Yeah.
A lot of that came from physically. If I'm going to be on stage for X amount of time, I can't stand stock still with a guitar around my neck in boots.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not going to work. And so that's probably the absolute best thing that's come out of that, as far as I'm concerned, is that being in that accident and the way it changed my body and the way it changed my mind turned me into I'm a much bigger fan of the performer I am now than the performer I was before I got hurt.
Yeah.
It's made me want to take more chances. It's made, I think it's made my singing better. Like spending that month not smoking just alone, made my singing better. It's changed my perspective in my writing, and I want to try and say this in a way that's not like me trying to be like, I'm so great, because I have no idea what that means, but but I do see that there's more engagement. I see that it's easier when I'm playing a solo show. The audience listens to me when I'm done singing because they were already listening when I was singing. That's not something that I could guarantee would happen every show before. And I remember the first show back, it was a Music City Roots on my birthday, and I just remember like finishing the first song and like standing ovation, and everyone was just like, the audience was just going crazy, and I was like, all right, cool. Well, there is some good that's coming out of this,
Awesome.
So,
as far as the motor skills, you were talking about like having to relearn to walk and relearn to play guitar. Is it like in your mind you remember how to do it, but having to teach your hands and like strumming and having to?
Yeah, I mean, like any neurological situation like that. I mean, it's almost like having a stroke in terms of.
Like, do you remember how to make a G chord?
Oh,
you just have to remember how to tell your hand to do it.
Right.
Like,
I remembered how to walk, and I had feeling in my legs, and I didn't really lose too much muscle there.
Yeah.
So I knew that I could, but every time I would stand up, I would buckle.
So having to, when people talk about having to learn how to walk again, they mean their body learning how to, not necessarily.
Right. That's because I was lucky. The disc that slipped was above still in my thoracic. And I don't know if you know like too much about like spinal cord, but basically it's in 3 sections. There's your cervical, which is like neck to about collarbone. Okay. And then there's your thoracic, which is like middle rib cage.
Yeah.
And then there's your lumbar, and that's down to your coccyx. Yeah. And on your lumbar and cervical, it's basically like a box of dried spaghetti. Like there's not very much lymph, there's not very much spinal fluid, but there's a ton of nerves.
Okay.
And then in your thoracic, it's like a pot of spaghetti after you've drained most of it. So there's like a few nerves floating around in most of your spinal fluid and lymph.
Okay.
So when that disc slipped, it didn't hit anything. If the disc
Okay.
below it slipped, it probably would have killed me. Definitely wouldn't have. I wouldn't have like had use of my legs.
Huh. Wow.
Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
And it's not something I really realized until I'd seen the MRI, and I was like, oh,
Wow.
buddy.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I was like, the knowledge was there, and like my left hand dexterity wasn't too bad. Like I could make chords, and then it's actually probably improved my playing because I wasn't running scales before
Right.
that.
You had to start practicing.
Yeah, and so now like I feel great about my guitar playing. I'm playing better than I was when I was 18, 19. I'm doing it every day.
Yeah.
It was my right hand. It was keeping correct time.
Yeah.
It
I could
was,
see that.
Having my picking finger when I'm doing a lead catch up with my left hand.
Be coordinated
fingers
with
on
the, yeah.
It was the coordination more than anything
Yeah.
else. That's all it was the same, the coordination between my upper and lower body for walking. It was the same thing. It was, but the physical therapy was really good for that, and it didn't take long. I'm sure there's some people that were in the hospital for stuff like that a lot longer, in and out their whole lives, but
yeah, I guess to break part of your back and to be out in 30 days and, soon after at some point start walking. How long were you like immobile? When did you start walking again?
I was walking like with the assistance of a walker after about a month, and then I was like upright and healthy and mobile. I would say probably it took a solid 6 months for me to get back to normal, and then another 6 months I think for me to be like at 100 or more than 100% better.
Yeah.
And like now I with the exception of like really abrupt weather, like hot to cold or pressure changes, I don't have hardly. It's rare that I have any problems.
That's great.
It's awesome. Yeah, I'm super lucky in that respect. I do need to be hitting the gym more.
We could all say that.
Yeah, but like specifically, like there's a lot of like upper leg and shoulder strength and ab strength that like it's not a matter of me just like wanting to look better because I'm getting older. It's like I need it so that I can keep standing upright.
Yeah, I get. Yeah. When did now we've covered the broken back, we can move on to Todd Snider because I want to talk about when did you start working with him or playing with him? I just know. I mean, I know Don said that you play with him. I've seen you post a couple of things about playing with him.
Yeah,
a recent thing.
I play guitar in the East Side Bulldogs, and some whenever we'd get to do the East Side Bulldogs, and then he's taken me out on the road with him a couple of times, and he's really been a big supportive influence and a mentor, and it's just great. Like
I don't know him. I don't know much about him. I just heard some crazy stories.
Oh yeah, I mean I've heard him too.
Yeah.
But and that was the thing. I think knew about each other for a while. Because we run with a lot of the same crowds. You know, in terms of like Rory Carroll's a really close friend of mine, and he did that record with her and Elizabeth, and then her manager Lauren Spratlin. I mean, that's like my best friend, and so we started running into each other right before I got hurt, and then about a year after the accident, we were doing this thing for the East Nashville Beer Fest. I had put together a Black Crowes cover band, and he was a big fan, and him and Chris Robinson are pretty close buds.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I got a call from Todd's tour manager that was basically like, I think Todd wants to come down and sing something with you for this. And I was like, all right, that's sure.
Oh, cool.
yeah, sounds like fun. And so like we got down there and he and I did Remedy together and we just had a ball and then as the year went on, you know, that's kind of when the Bulldogs thing started, and then you know, he had the big 50th birthday like week long sort of thing where he did the Ryman show and the 5-spot gig and the church gig and you know, I was on that, and then you know, this last year we've done more Bulldog stuff, and he's a good dude, man. He's, you know, I don't think he knows really how great he's been to me, but you know, like I said, I was going through so much depression and you know, anxiety and all of these things sort of related to the accident and related to, you know, there's so much financial worry because I didn't have insurance and I was just really, really, really lost and really scared for a really long time, and having him, you know, go out of his way to reach out and to include me in things and to encourage me and remind me that, you know, that I was good and I do have talent and I can do this is like, you know, I'll never be able to thank Todd enough for that. He's an angel. He's such a great dude.
Yeah. He, I think most of what I know about him is what I've heard, some old Ragweed songs that he had written, that Cross Canadian Ragweed covered. I remember like there was a live album. They said, "It's an old Todd Snider song. I want you to sing your asses off." And
oh yeah,
was it like Late Last Night? Trying to keep down.
Yeah.
That was always one of my favorites. And,
yeah.
But I know one of my roommates, my cousin Chance. I remember we got the Todd Snider book, the book he wrote or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember him reading it and like telling me all these crazy stories about hanging out with Jerry Jeff Walker.
Oh yeah, dude, he's got some bonkers stories. It's funny because it's like I've gotten to a place where like I really enjoy like telling stories and stuff on stage, and and I've been having a lot of fun with it. But whenever I go out and do gigs with Todd, I normally just play.
Yeah.
And don't because it's like that, you know.
You gotta like let him be.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't really tell stories. I leave my shoes on for those gigs. Like, you know, that's just like Todd can do the Todd thing.
Yeah, no, I get that. So what you got? What's going on? What's coming up? When's the last record you put out?
Well, we put out a record in May of this year called "Brace Yourself," because we thought that would be a hilarious title. Because Clint, our guitar player, about a month after I got out of the hospital, was doing tree work and fell out of a tree and broke his back.
Oh, wow.
Along with some ribs and ruptured his spleen as well. So
brace yourself.
Yeah. So we were laid up for a while, and we had a bunch of stuff we were working on, and we went to Battle Tapes, and Dean Jackson and Robbie Crowell produced a record on us, so we put that out in May, and I love that record. I think it's the best thing that we've, you know, as a unit have done. And
those of you listening should go purchase that record.
AllenThompsonBand.com.
There you go.
Yeah, so we put that record out and didn't really tour behind it this summer as much as I would like to have. I did a lot of solo stuff. You know, everybody was just kind of busy with.
Do you do your own booking? Or do you
have I've got a couple of folks that help me. You know, one person that helps me with sort of like the East Coast regional stuff, and then another person who kind of helps me out with a lot of my west of the Mississippi stuff. And then I fill in the gaps in between on my own. But yeah, it was just, you know, timing. Like Chad, our keyboard player, was opening a restaurant, and you know, and Clint was out with Los Colones, and you know, I didn't really have the support financially, or you know, just general advocacy wise to be able to do a full on thing this summer.
Yeah.
So I did as much as I could on alone, and you know, I've been writing a lot and getting ready to do a bunch of solo stuff in the winter, starting in February, and then hopefully this spring getting in and making a new record. And I don't know if it's going to be an Allen Thompson record or an Allen Thompson Band record, or if it's going to be something just completely different.
Something you don't know yet.
From all that, like, something with its own name, that's its own entity. That's what I think I would prefer right now.
I think you should call it the 11 Dixie Mudcats.
I'll put that in my notes.
There you go. There you go.
But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now, and it's a cool place to be. It's been a long time since I was like thought about doing something new.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to remind yourself that it's better to do something new than to keep doing the same thing.
Same thing, yeah, for sure. What shows you got coming up?
I've got a lot of writing and a lot of rehearsing and stuff to do for all of December and January, and then starting at the beginning of February, I'm doing some dates in Virginia and Pennsylvania with Snider, and then home and doing a couple of things, and then back out on the road for hopefully the end of February through like a good bit of March, and then hopefully recording and then getting the next thing going.
Yeah, man.
So.
One step at a time, right?
Exactly.
If you could go back, I'll try to ask everybody this if I can remember to. If you could go back to yourself at 18, 19 years old and give yourself advice, what would you tell you? What would you tell 18, 19, 20-year-old Allen Thompson?
Oh, man. I would tell him to write about something besides chicks. I'll just be like, dude, you're going to waste a lot of time writing a lot of songs about a lot of chicks, and then you're going to hate yourself for it. Like, but other than that, I would say to definitely keep it up, because, in a few years, we'll get to play with a lot of the people that you are watching and want to play with. And you're going to love that. So,
right on, man. Well, check him out, ladies and gentlemen. AllenThompsonBand.com. Of social medias, are you a social media guy? Do you have all the?
Oh,
all
yeah,
the
I'm
things?
on the Instagram and the Twitter.
Is it at Allen Thompson Band?
It is Allen_Thompson.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, man. Thanks for coming and talking. This
Dude,
was cool.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Allen Thompson, great guy, killer performer, singer, songwriter. Folks, you got to go check him out. Check out the Allen Thompson Band if you ever get a chance. Look up their latest release, Brace Yourself, wherever you choose to look up music. I don't know, where you do that personally, but go check it out. AllenThompsonBand.com is the website, and all this there'll be links and more info, maybe a few videos of Allen and the guys over at don'tstifleme.com/037, because this was episode 37, people. 37, how about that? Now, while Allen and I are jamming here in the background, if you enjoyed this talk and any of the other talks, and you want more, you want to be a part of it all, well, you can do that. You can go check out patreon.com/DSM podcast, where you can get exclusive access to pictures and videos and MP3 downloads and all kinds of things behind the scenes here at the podcast and more. There's a lot more over at the website. So it helps keep the operation moving, and you get to see and hear things that other people don't get to see and hear. So that is patreon.com/DSM podcast. Also, make sure you subscribe to the podcast here. And if you are nice enough and kind enough and have the time in your day, if you would rate and review us on iTunes, that would be fantastic. If you're into the social media thing, the podcast social medias are all at DSM Podcast. Mine are all at Jacob Stifle. And once again, thank you so much for listening for this long. If you're still listening right now, you're a beautiful, beautiful person. Everybody else is beautiful too, but you're doubly beautiful for listening this long. We've got a few more episodes to finish up the year, and then it's on to 2018. And, onward and upward, people. I hope you have a great, beautiful, magnificent rest of your day, and I will talk to you again very soon.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful. It's perfect. It's a masterpiece.
Yeah. Genius.